What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome to the Sunday edition of our weekly live show where we plan to drop some interesting or useful e-commerce news. Of course, you're going to get our brand of snark, and we will be tackling your Amazon questions. My name's Chris Grant, and to my right is my co-host, the heterochthonous Chris Rasick. And for those of you who are new here, our job is to try to make your life a little bit easier as a seller. Whether you've got questions about flipping clearance, doing retail arbitrage, pulling the trigger on OA or wholesale, we will try to help. We'll answer your questions about Keepa, share some news, maybe a crazy Amazon story here and there, and of course, take every single question you can throw at us. Chris, how's your Sunday, man?
So far, so good. How about you?
Can't complain. Chores got out of the way this morning. I've already been on a hot girl walk this morning. Did the grocery shopping. Like it's a good day.
Even if it ended right now, I'd chalk it up as a win.
Right. So we got a few folks here. Jerry, what's going on? Luke, glad to have you in here, man. What's going on, Matthew? Carrie, what's up? The Sunday Studs. If we are your version of what you consider a stud, you need to raise the bar, my friend. Just a touch. Before we hop in, I want to talk a little bit about Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie did not just build a steel empire. He actually optimized every single part of it. He cut waste, he streamlined production, and then he outperformed everyone in the market. He may have been a little cutthroat at the same time, but that's one of the reasons he became the richest man in the world. And in my opinion, it's time to Carnegie your Amazon business. You don't need every tool under the sun, but you can get tactical arbitrage, inventory labs, smart repricer, and feedback whiz, all the things to kind of holistically run an Amazon business for the most part. You can even get reimbursements and make sure you're getting all your money back from Amazon all in one single package through Seller 365. And Seller 365 bundles all of those things together, starting at just $69 a month, which I think would make Andrew Carnegie pretty proud. Same tools, less costs, hopefully more profits. Carnegie didn't build his business by overpaying, and neither should you. So go and grab a free trial, 14-day free trial over at oachallenge.com/seller-365. That's oachallenge.com/seller-365. You can also find the link down in the show notes wherever you may be watching this. All right. Let's we've got a big piece of news, I think, this Sunday. And then of course, if you guys have questions, please make sure to drop them in the chat. We want to talk about what you guys want to talk about as well. But this is what's been on everyone's lips. I've seen it across Twitter. I've seen it on Facebook. I've seen it talked about in Discords. Amazon seems to have thrown yet another curveball this week. If your inbox was not flooded may be a little harsh term, with supply chain verification emails, then you're one of the lucky ones. Some sellers now need proof of 100+ units from verifiable suppliers just to stay on certain listings. And this seems to be across some toys, some consumer electronics, and even some household goods. Some of the brands that I'm aware of so far are Marvel, Baby Ganix, Airwick, Andis, NYX, Monster High, Remington, Pokemon, Hot Wheels, and the list goes on and on. Now, before we go too much further into this, so some of my other thoughts, there is one thing that I have noticed is that people are not taking the time to actually read the entire email, because it says very specifically that you can use invoices, receipts. The word receipts is literally spelled out there. And I'm seeing a lot of people say, oh, well, how am I going to go out and buy X amount of units this quickly? You don't have to. They're not looking for you to buy them right now. They want to know that you've sold that many over the past 365 days. So if it's a brand that you've sold a lot of, then you should be able to come up with the receipts already. If you're doing online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, they just want to make sure they're from legitimate sources. But this is a bit of an interesting shift in how Amazon handles who can sell what products. I was curious, is this some sort of extension of the Section 3 suspensions? Like Amazon couldn't get through them fast enough, and so they're throwing this out there. I know some are calling it gating 2.0, some are downright panicked. I happened to see in one group, what did this guy say? Um, it was laughable. I doubt I'll get any answers, but it's worth a shot. What brands are even left? Which I thought was just a touch dramatic. Um, the reality is this is not nearly as bad as an account suspension. This does seem like Amazon's trying to clean house a little bit, trying to make sure that they're pushing out counterfeiters, maybe pushing out overseas sellers. They have specifically said we want domestic sellers in their email, if you've read the whole thing. And this isn't necessarily something new. It's a new spin, but we've seen this kind of move before. You might remember in 2024, Amazon seemed to start mass restricting apparel brands. We all seem to live through that. You go back a little bit further, just so everyone knows this isn't like a Amazon seller 2.0 kind of problem. Back in 2020, there was something called the Great Grocery Gate. Matter of fact, I had stickers. I ordered stickers from, I don't know, one of the companies, Mule Kick or something like that, that said I survived Grocery Gate 2020. And sellers freaked out then. Sellers seem to be freaking out now. But we also know that many times when this kind of thing happens, we wait a couple of months and then things start to loosen up again. So my opinion is the key here is we know how to adapt rather than overreact. So let's talk strategy a little bit. What should we be doing if we get one of these emails? Well, my opinion is that if you're deep in an affected brand, you have two options. Get your receipts, invoices, etc., for how many ever units they're asking you for, which if you're deep in it, you should have them, and send those in. If it's something that you know is incredibly profitable going forward, or you expect it to be incredibly profitable, there are ways to get pretty high volume for pretty cheap, even if it's not going to be something that you can sell at a profit. It may be worth taking that short-term loss now and making it up with sales in the future. Or you're going to want to probably move pretty fast. You're probably going to want to get aggressive on pricing, sell through the inventory that you have before it does get gated, or start shifting that over to other marketplaces. There are other marketplaces, although if you were with us this past Wednesday, Amazon's not the only marketplace gating brands at the moment. Walmart is doing the exact same thing. If you're not deep in these particular brands, maybe you're not interested in being deep in them, just watch and wait. It has happened quite frequently that things shake out differently than we expect them. And is there going to be a path moving forward to get ungated in these brands? I would imagine there probably will be. I don't see Amazon saying, hey, we're only going to allow domestic sellers, and you need to show us that you're moving some weight on these brands. But going forward, domestic sellers cannot get ungated in these brands. We're going to hard gate them. I don't see that happening. here's the deal. Sellers who treat Amazon like a real business and are able to pivot, adapt, they're going to be good to go. And maybe we see some reduced price erosion due to less competition. Now, saying all of this, there is something else that I would tell everyone to do. Okay. Create some social pressure. Amazon does not communicate well, and they have a track record of reversing some of these what feel like extreme gating moves when sellers make enough noise. So if you're on social media, say something about it. They may not respond to us, okay? But I know without a shadow of a doubt that they are watching. They're watching inside Facebook groups. They have an active and vocal presence on Twitter. I know that many of the executives are on LinkedIn. Now, do they spend time actually watching? I don't know, but I would imagine they may have someone on their team doing it. But say something in a professional manner. Okay. If you go out there just screaming into the void, it's not likely going to be heard. But if you can make a reasoned case for why either we need more time or this is not the move, Amazon just recently made a change to one of their policies that was supposed to go into effect at the middle of March, and they moved it to the end of March. That is the reimbursements and the what is that called? They have a reimbursement
sourcing cost something.
Yeah. So they've moved that back to the end of March. I can guarantee that's because they saw some well-reasoned arguments on social media about it. And then remember, Amazon's not in the business of making sellers' lives easier. Like I said, they don't communicate well. They make sweeping changes without any real warning. But I mean, Chris and I have said this for a long time. It's our job to be able to take those, kind of roll with the punches, be able to zig when everyone else is zagging. Remember not to panic. Panic makes you make emotional decisions rather than logical decisions. And then if we can remember, chaos is a ladder, which is a quote from Littlefinger in Game of Thrones. When stuff like this happens and chaos ensues, it does offer the ability to give you a ladder to get ahead rather than just have to accept it and be stuck. So Chris, my question for you is, do you think this is just the beginning of a long-term trend? Do you think Amazon eases up in a few months, or what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
I think this is a largely an extension of stuff that is something that was in place already. Because this, well, first, let's say this has been a rough 6 months for the people who don't have a large supply of rationality and emotional intelligence. Like this is like who the Amazon pharmacy, the uptick in antidepressants must be going crazy. That must have been one of the fringe benefits of this.
We were ahead of the curve talking about Amazon seller therapy, and we may have missed a serious cash cow.
It was a good idea when we first brought it up, half jokingly. Now it's a fantastic idea. People are going absolutely nuts. Now this is this is the most unfortunate part of this is how many sellers are really having such a hard time processing this. This is I've always, just through my experience, there are different tiers and whatnot. I think certain brands there's a certain pecking order, and it probably largely has to do with brand communication to Amazon and maybe communications on what they like and don't like, about the representation of their brand on the catalog. But I have had multiple situations to where I will get a violation on my account health. And even though I appeal it and win the appeal, and I get my points back and everything goes back to normal, I've lost brands because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And just certain brands. One specifically was Neutrogena. I recently, just out of the blue, it's been months though, not related to the most recent news, but I lost Pokemon probably a month or two ago, just randomly, just kind of like collateral damage because of an account health issue that I took care of and did take care of, and got my score back. The problem is, the unfortunate part was that I didn't get Pokemon back. So I think there are a collection of brands that Amazon has the sensitivity dialed up, and based on seller performance on an individual basis, I think access to sell would be restricted. They have their, in this top tier of brands, it's like, okay, anybody that has 3 or more of these kind of violations, we've got to pull them off of this stuff, because this brand has threatened litigation or whatever the reason is, or they want to pull it from the catalog completely, or whatever it may be, whatever those back channel conversations are. So either it's a certain kind of violation that a seller had, or a certain account health score, or whatever it may be, but there are brands that have different triggers. Some are itchier than others. So what I think this is essentially all of whatever the top tiers. They took a whole bunch of the brands on the top and just said, you know what, let's not make it on an individual seller basis. Let's just lock it down for anybody except for the ones that are doing what we consider significant volume. Okay. So that's what I look at. This is just kind of shifting it from the seller focused brand restrictions to kind of, just setting the bar a little bit higher in general. But once everyone calms down, the fact that they do give us a path to sell these products, most of them, that's a good thing. The unfortunate part of this is this is kind of operation deep, not wide. However, people who, it is unfortunate for the good smart sellers that are kind of trying to diversify and just kind of hit or miss here and there. You may lose brands, at least temporarily. However, what's the solution? Same thing you've been doing. Keep going wide and not deep, and you can overcome this, I think, fairly easily. So, I am interested. It's certainly an opportunity. It's going to allow for a level of arbitrage seller, a well-skilled arbitrage seller that's able to find these quantities through OA or RA. You can certainly make a concentrated effort to get brands that you like selling unlocked for the most part. There's only a handful on the list that we've collected so far that are hard gated. So there's, and that's a disadvantage spread across all sellers, no matter what you're doing, whether it's wholesale, OA, RA, whatever it may be. So there's certainly an opportunity within this to kind of concentrate on certain brands that you like. So, I honestly wasn't upset by this at all, even though, and I got several emails, I got several brands, but I don't know whether I just have a wider angle lens as far as from a sourcing aspect than most people, or what it is. But this was kind of okay. Just a blip on the news radar as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. That was kind of the way that I took it too. I don't know. I don't know. You and I often say that we're cynics, or maybe even on the pessimistic side, but I don't know. We also really try to find the silver lining. So I think we might be kidding ourselves. I think we might be optimists. I don't know if I accept that yet. I'll figure that out.
One
On my
time
own
you
time.
said, what was the phrase you said? Skeptically optimistic or cynically
Yes,
optimistic,
something like that.
or was it optimistically cynical? Which way did you go with that?
I think it was optimistically cynical.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
But
take that.
I don't know. I honestly, I was thinking about this. There are, I don't know, maybe a handful, maybe 5 brands I can think of off the top of my head where if Amazon said, hey, you need to buy 1,000 units and prove it to us that you know, have either purchased 1,000 units in the past 365 days, or to get ungated, you need to purchase 1,000 units. There are a couple of those out there where I'd be like, okay, I'll do it. Maybe be one at a time, you know, waiting for it to get unlocked. And this seems to be that opportunity. Now, is that going to hurt the seller who maybe really wants to sell that brand, but they don't have it in their budget? Sure, we could argue that, but there's so many other brands that you could sell until you get to the point that you could be like, okay, this is my, you know, this is my I don't know. I don't know. This is the brand I really, really want to sell. I've got to buy 200 units of it or 300 units of it, maybe at break even or even a small loss. And the other thing we've got to remember is even if you do have to buy these at a small loss, that doesn't mean you're going to lose all the money. It means you're going to lose some of it. A small loss is not a total loss. Those are two different things. And I think sometimes when sellers are like, oh, I'm going to have to buy these at a loss, they think they're just throwing all their cash away. No, maybe you got to spend $500 or $1,000 and maybe you're only going to get 800 of it back. $200 to get ungated in, I don't know, let's say Milwaukee, is actually kind of a bargain. So I don't know. I actually like this. I think this could be a good thing. I think we're going to see some prices raise a little bit. I think we're going to see some people who aren't serious throw in the towel. There's a couple of people who I hope throw in the towel. But I don't know. I definitely don't think this is as bad as what people are making it to be.
No, certainly not. And look, we're not naive. You know, there's what 100. There's over 100 people watching right now, and I know there are people out there that are just seething. You know, saying, "Oh, there they go, spinning the positive." You know, and I mean, I know there's bound to be somebody out there angry. So if you can make a halfway intelligent argument on why this is a concrete negative, you know, like some sort of effect, we can talk about it. We won't, you know, we'll pull the comment up. That's fine, as long as it's respectful, and we can talk it out and we can ration through and see if there's maybe a long-term positive or some sort of solution. Let's work it out. If you're upset, you know, unless our reputation precedes us and you're only tuning in to see what kind of BS positive spin we try to put on it, then there may be no talking you off the ledge. So maybe in that case, don't comment. But throw your concerns in there. Let me, you know, let's take a look at them. Let's talk it out. Because I'm real interested to see what the, like you alluded to, the pricing dynamics on the brands that have elevated entry points.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what this certainly does hurt the clearance aisle RA shopper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we know that those quantities are limited. I would argue pricing on that listing, once it hits the clearance aisle, not much positive happens from that point through an extended period of time. However, I think the people who are upset that they're not going to be able to pull as much profitable inventory from the clearance aisles, that may be a little short-sighted, because that's a nice little fill in the gaps, you know, fill in some holes in your boxes kind of inventory collection. It's not necessarily a long-term play, you know. It's been, when RA years ago, we've been talking about, taking the time. I think it all comes down to, I think far too many sellers aren't thinking in terms of enough reps. And it's very similar to, the beginner seller that jumps on there and says, I scanned everything on Target site and I couldn't find anything profitable. I've been at this for 45 whole minutes, and it's like, the seasoned seller, you can laugh at that. And it's obvious what the problem is. They're not thinking how long it's going to take, how many duds you're going to have to go through to find the winners. You're not considering the full scope of the work that's involved. And I think it's an extension of that. If you're upset because the clearance aisle isn't going to be as profitable, you probably needed to widen the scope of your sourcing before this happened.
I would agree. So we've got a couple of comments. So let's take these one at a time. So the negative would be that buying that quantity and Amazon not accepting the invoice. I 100% agree with you. That would absolutely suck. However, I'm going to push back a little bit. We know of a couple of places where, let me take this back. We know of one place that seems to get accepted almost 100% of the time. Now, does it get accepted on the first shot all the time? No, it doesn't. But, and I'll just say it, it's Amazon. Buy from Amazon themselves. Use the Amazon invoice. Those get accepted almost all the time. As a matter of fact, on some ungating applications, Amazon even has a different requirement for if you're going to use an Amazon invoice compared to if you're going to use a receipt or invoice from another place. And then outside of using Amazon, what I would do is I think that I would actually use some retailers rather than wholesalers. We know that Amazon has accepted Target and Best Buy and Home Depot and Lowe's and several places like that. Those kind of Home Depot and Lowe's, I don't think are multinational, but everyone knows what Target is. Everyone knows what Home Depot is. And that's the thing we're often fighting against is the person who sees the actual receipts or invoices. It is their lack of knowledge or it is, well, if I just mark this as not right, I don't get in any trouble. But if I mark this as okay and it's not actually okay, I do get in trouble. So it's either lack of knowledge or misaligned incentives or both of those things. And if you go back to Wednesday, we talked about how misaligned incentives are also causing problems. I'm coming up against that problem right now with an IP complaint. I have very legitimate receipts. I have everything done correctly. I got 2 of the exact same IP complaint. The exact same receipt was accepted for one, and it's being declined over and over and over again for the other. That makes no sense other than, well, if person A says it's wrong, and then I send it back in, well, they see, oh, well, person A said it's wrong. I'm not going to put my neck on the line. I'm going to say it's wrong. And then it just goes down that path. So,
yeah. And one thing I would say is, we have, think about the process. Think of the roller coaster of getting ungated over the last couple of years. Okay. I started prior to lockdowns, right? So I'm in, it's been 5 years plus now for me. And when I just kind of stumbled into good timing, right? I got it in my head that I wanted to unlock grocery. And I didn't know that in a couple months lockdown would hit and 2 packs of wheat thins would be worth $22. So, that was just luck. However, to get ungated, like there was what I think what's going to happen is we're going to roll back to the good old days a little bit, right? Because there was, in Facebook groups and in, these Discords and stuff, people used to kind of put their heads together and they would talk about the cheapest way and the best places to get ungated back when you had to do it for real, right? So grocery was locked down for new sellers. And I learned through networking and social media groups that Frontier Co-op was a good place to do it. You could sign up easily for a wholesale account, buy they said buy 12 units. You only need 10, but buy 12 just because, you took a picture, right? And there was this whole process. And the little search bar is such a beautiful thing in these social media groups. There's a wealth of information. If you just pop your question into that search bar, you'll find that the common ones have been answered hundreds of times. And the information you're looking for is going to be there. So we're going to have to kind of come together as a community again a little bit. Another maybe inadvertent positive out of this whole thing. And, we're going to have to kind of share some strategy on how to get this ungated, or how to get through, the elevated gates. So, and then we're walking through the history, and then all of a sudden Amazon just kind of they put gating on vacation mode, right? And people were just sending in pictures of their dog and getting ungated. And they opened it up as wide as possible, or lost the key, or what, I'm not sure what happened. And a whole bunch of people got ungated. And think about it, gating it's fairly easy if you think about it. That we know what the process is for most of this stuff. It's just gone largely from 10 to 100 or a couple hundred. But it's a tiny little hurdle of making sure that you're qualified to sell something. Okay. So when they open that up, I don't think it's a stretch to say that there were people that got ungated in things that are not qualified to sell, right? It was too easy. So, and then they had to lock it down. And a bunch of weird stuff has been happening over the last year or so, right? With gating, it's gotten really, really tough, and what worked didn't seem to work. I don't think we can go into this now that they've sent those emails out. I don't think it's necessarily a smart idea to assume the way the gating process was immediately before these emails went out is going to be the ungating process now that those emails are out. I think those emails were an extension of the chaos and the difficulty that we were experiencing over the last 6, 9, 12 months with the difficulties in getting ungated. I may be wrong, but I don't see why they would do something like this on a large scale and then be as finicky as they were before the emails went out.
Mm-hmm. I like that theory. I think I'm going to buy into that one. Now, here's the other thing. David says, if brand restrictions have only gotten tighter over time, I'm just concerned what arbitrage and wholesale looks like in 5 years. This has been a concern forever. Truthfully, I've been selling on Amazon for 12 years in earnest. I've had an Amazon account longer than that. Ever since I got involved in the Amazon community in earnest, this has always been something people were worried about. Well, what happens to arbitrage? This is the year arbitrage dies. I've heard that for 12 years, literally. Arbitrage will never go away. I always start up the OA challenge with the history of arbitrage, and arbitrage is actually first codified in the Code of Hammurabi, literally. Okay, the oldest written law in the world has arbitrage codified in it. Now, does arbitrage look different eventually? I would imagine, yeah, most likely. Before the internet, there was, there was still arbitrage of physical products. Most of it was through grocery stores, convenience stores, etc. But there were people who were going to garage sales and then selling things at flea markets. And there were people who would, buy things at thrift stores and sell them in a brick and mortar shop. Like arbitrage will always be there. Is it Amazon in 20 years from now? I don't know. It could be another marketplace. But arbitrage and wholesale, it can't go anywhere for Amazon. 60% of units sold on Amazon are sold by third-party sellers. Now, I had someone ask me the other day, well, how much of that is actually sellers like us, and how much of that is sellers like Anchor and Pattern, etc.? Well, I was thinking about that a little bit because I'm like, hey, I bet you we could kind of extrapolate that a little bit. There's 890 or so, probably 1,000 now because these numbers are a little old, but I'd say there are about 1,000 sellers who sell 10 million or more per year. Okay. And that includes the Anchors, the Patterns, a couple of others, the Jeff Storches, the Eli Glakowskis, people we've had on the show. That includes them. But we have to remember why Amazon works. Amazon works because of the long tail. Matter of fact, if you haven't read the book, go read the book, The Long Tail. It explains why the internet and Amazon are so powerful, because you can go and you can literally find whatever you're looking for. That is actually the function that brings people back to Amazon. It's not just because, I can go and I can get my hair gel and I can get my, cosmetics, and I just bought my kid a volleyball, like all in one place. Do we do that? Yes, because it's convenient. But the real reason that we come back to Amazon is the fact that I can find this weird little adapter that I have no idea if even Best Buy is going to have it in stock when I need it, and I can get it delivered in 24 hours. When Amazon starts seeing traffic and conversions fall off because they have a problem with stock, they would start moving the other direction and they would start opening things up, because that would not be a customer-centric move. Like, they've got to keep stuff on the shelves. So you got to remember, they're always going to be doing whatever it takes to keep the customer happy and keep the customer coming back. And right now, do they need as many Amazon sellers selling Marvel? No, not necessarily, especially if they want to make sure that their shelves are stocked full of legitimate product that is not counterfeit. But if this were to affect, someone not being able to go and find that Neutrogena shampoo that sells for $50 a bottle down the road, Amazon would start moving the other direction.
Right. The everything store. Jeff's vision hasn't changed. They're just, I've said it multiple times, the slogan on the trucks, reinforce. It's just the everything store phrased a different way. The current trucks have everything and the kitchen sink. Amazon wants to have everything available on their catalog, and they can only do that with arbitrage sellers sourcing inventory for them. This is very much, here's the thing, look at there's a couple lists floating around of the brands that were affected by these elevated gatings. We've heard of almost all of them. Okay. These are well-known brands. And that's, you may think that that's part of what makes it so bad, but it also reinforces the need for arbitrage. There was probably the number one troll in the FBA Today group. I think actually he posted it in a different group. He said, what brands are even still available, right? And he was talking about a specific category. And I do. I got a little weekend lead list that I send out, and I don't, so I'm only sourcing for leads to send out Saturday and Sunday, and I found at least, no exaggeration, I found at least 5 brands in this category that the troll was talking about that I hadn't heard of before. In addition to, 5 to 10 leads, buyable leads, in that same category that I had heard of. So we don't understand, we can't, the problem is, with all these brands, you don't understand how big the ocean is, how many brands there are. So I just asked, they're currently, Perplexity is estimating that there are approximately 2 million different brands sold on Amazon.
Wow.
Okay. Yes. And then to break it up, to break that down even further, they said only about 10%, which would be 200,000 brands, are consistently among the top 100 bestsellers in various categories. Interesting, but it gets better. Over 650,000 different brands have appeared in the top 100 bestsellers across all categories in the past year. So
interesting.
What is this? We have show notes, so you guys can't see it, but we pulled one of the lists. What is there? 100 brands on there? Just
that sounds
guessing,
right. Yeah,
rounding up, probably.
That sounds right.
Okay, 650,000 different brands have been in the top 100 bestsellers just over the last year on Amazon. This is such a small drop in a very, very large bucket. And the only reason it feels claustrophobic is because you're holding on to the frustrations of your sourcing. And you go through and I know, and I understand, I have to fight through it myself. You go through and you're on 30 in a row that are no good, and it's like, oh, you feel like throwing in the towel, and it's like, this is garbage. Like, I can't sell anything. I can't find any profit, and you get frustrated, but that's the emotions taking over, right? Your hit ratio is going to be your hit ratio. If you're only going to find 3 good products to buy out of every 100, you may get 80 of the duds all in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the numbers are going to work out in the end, whatever they may be for you. And that means 3 of your next 20 are going to be hits.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a sales tactic. You have to have thick skin, and you need to buy into the fact that every dud is one step closer to the next good product, because they are out there, and these emails haven't even made any kind of statistical difference in the amount of good leads that you can find if you're employing smart sourcing strategies.
I want to take you said 60,000 brands have made the top 100, right?
650,000 different brands have appeared in the top 100.
Okay. I want to give people a visual on that, if I could, for a moment. I went in and I looked up how many brands does the average grocery store carry, and there seems to be no answer for that. But I was at the grocery store earlier today, Publix, the best grocery store in the country, and I looked it up, and it says that the average Publix in the U.S. carries approximately between 40 and 50,000 unique items. Okay. So now imagine that each item on a shelf at a Publix or your favorite local grocery store is each a different brand. And it's not the case. Of course, there's, Heinz has 57 different products, but imagine that each product is a different brand on Amazon. You are looking at 12 grocery stores full of products that have hit the top 100 on Amazon. That's insane.
Yes.
That's
Right.
nuts.
And then you have to, if you need help connecting more dots, to really get this to sink in, we don't only sell within the top 100.
Mm-hmm.
Like go through your sourcing spreadsheets and try to take a rough guess of how many different brands you've sold just over the course of the last, I don't know, whatever sample size you want to take, 6 months, year, or whatever. It's, there's so much out there. It's mind boggling. It's tough to get your head wrapped around it. And I think that's part of the issue. I think the people that are upset,
Mm-hmm.
and I completely understand, because you have
It's
to kind of really, you got to find the perspective that sinks in for you.
Yeah, it
As an
really
individual.
is. It really is. It's like when you think about, well, how big is infinity? Like it's that same kind of thing when it comes to Amazon. You just don't
Right.
realize how big it really is. All right, Chris, you got the next piece on the agenda for today, and then we'll answer your guys' questions as well right after that.
Yeah, and when we were talking about doing like a Sunday show, we like the idea of Sundays, because it is, it kind of, on the Venn diagram of, who this might be attractive to. You have the weekend warriors who are wrapping up their work weekend. Shout out to everybody who puts solid time in on the weekends, or the people who kind of treat it more like, well, this is my job, and you spend the weekends with your family and doing stuff. That's great too. You are gearing up for the work week ahead. So I thought it was kind of nice. There's a lot of crossover, that we can kind of set the stage, and we kind of viewed it as a, an FBA brunch kind of show, just lighthearted, just yuck it up. And then those damn emails came out, and and Amazon social media, Amazon seller social media, everybody lost their minds, and it's like, wow, what an inaugural show. How about that for timing, right?
Right.
So but part of part of the Sunday, whether you're wrapping up your work weekend, or you're kind of getting set, we want to talk about, Chris and I both love mindset. You guys know that if you listen to us. We love laws. I love explanations of why we think the way we think, because in my mind, if I can understand that, it's going to make it that much easier to correct behavior that I want to improve on, or break bad habits that I want broken. So we thought we want to present one thing to you that you can kind of take away, and something to think about, and with maybe some points to improve on, hopefully like an aha moment. And if you think about it a little bit, you could become a better seller, a better entrepreneur. So this week I figured this is one of my favorites, just because it's so prevalent. But I wanted to talk about Parkinson's law, right? And I'll do my best Malcolm Gladwell impersonation for you now. Imagine a woman with a single task for the day. She wants to send a postcard. It's a simple endeavor, one might think, requiring no more than a few minutes. Yet as the hours tick by, the seemingly straightforward task expands, right? It fills the entire day with a series of related activities, right? She spends an hour searching for the perfect card. She spends another half hour locating her misplaced glasses. She spends 90 minutes crafting the perfect message for this postcard. By the time she thinks about whether to take an umbrella on the walk to the post office, the sun is setting already on a day that's now been consumed by one single postcard. This is Parkinson's law in action. A bit of a whimsical story, but you'll see how it's connected. So what's Parkinson's law? Coined by Cyril Northcote Parkinson in 1955, the principle states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Think of it like a gas filling its container. Our tasks seem to magically stretch to occupy whatever time we give them. So why does it happen? It's kind of a cocktail of human tendencies, right? One part is our perfectionism, right? So given the extra time, we want to polish over and over again and get it just right. So it's a bit of perfectionism. There's a bit of fear of idle time, because in society today, especially, we equate busyness with value, right? So, the concept of being busy but not being productive, those are two distinct things a lot of times. And then the third part of the cocktail is procrastination, of course. Distant deadlines make us kind of lull us into needless delay. So how do you harness it? How do you fix it? Understanding the law. If you understand it, you can actually turn it into a productivity tactic, if you will. So number one, best way to combat this, I would say, is to set artificial deadlines, create urgency, and that'll make you focus your efforts on completing the task. If you need to, break projects into smaller tasks. Make it harder for work to expand by simply getting a series of smaller tasks done consecutively. And then embrace constraints. Limited time can spark creativity. When a deadline's coming, that's often when we are at our most creative. So that lady with the postcard, imagine if she'd given herself just 30 minutes to get a postcard and make sure it's in the mail. She might have chosen a card quickly. She might have written a more concise message, and she certainly would have mailed it promptly, probably gotten it all done before lunch. So that's the contrast between the two. So it's not just a quirk of somebody working a 9 to 5 or whatever. It can be the key to unlocking productivity, right? Just understand that that's our tendency to make the work expand. We can actually flip the script and make ourselves more efficient by understanding its presence. So the next time you face a task, ask yourself, am I going to let this expand to fill my day, or am I going to harness Parkinson's law to my advantage? Because obviously sometimes less time is definitely more.
Yeah, this is Parkinson's law. I don't know if it's something that I enjoy reading about over and over again, because I don't want to say that I'm a victim to it, because it's my own fault. But it's something that I see quite frequently,
Mhm.
and in my own life. And I was thinking the whole psychology behind the expansion that you were talking about, perfectionism. Well, we've got all these little like cliches to try to help us go the other direction. Perfectionism. We try to polish endlessly. Well, done is better than perfect. Fear of idle time.
Mhm.
I think it was Bill Gates who said, if you want to get something done, give it to a lazy person. Because
Yep.
they want to get it done, and then they want to go back to being lazy.
Right.
And I don't know. I love Parkinson's law. This is a really, really good one.
Yeah.
And one thing that really sticks out to me is how limited time can spark creativity. I don't know whether it's the fact that I really like to, I don't know, maybe I'm a self-flagellator. That's not as dirty as what some of you are probably thinking. But I will wait until deadlines are right up, I'm right up against it. And
Yep.
sometimes what I should do is I should say, hey, I should make my own deadline rather than waiting for the real deadline. And I am more creative. Like, I can get it done quick. I'm thinking of new things. But then I'm also like, well, shoot, like, I've got to have this done for real, in 5 minutes or whatever it is. But I love Parkinson's law.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was subject to it this morning, getting today's list done.
Mhm.
Inevitably, like I have, once I send Saturday's list out, as much as I try to plan ahead and have a bunch of prospects ready, most of the time I'm using up all the good leads that I've collected leading up to Saturday at noon. So basically from Saturday at noon to Sunday at noon, I've got to find a full list, right? Which is not a huge task, you know. I mean, I can get it done. But so anyway, so Saturday last night, I was on a roll, right? I found a whole bunch of good stuff, and I was basically at the point where probably 2 or 3 more leads, and Sunday's list was good to go. I was feeling great. Woke up this morning, I set my alarm to make sure I have enough time, but I knew, I was like, man, I've got more leads than I usually do waking up on Sunday morning. So I slept a little bit later. I hit the snooze button, right? Laid in bed for about an extra half hour than I normally do. Come down here, I sit at my desk, and I'm like, well, I could probably get this done. So I started another task, right? And I could probably do a little bit of this. And I bought inventory before I even started my research. You know, I was like, man, this is going to feel great when I get the list out, and I've already got 30, 40 units en route to the prep center already. You know, that's going to be way ahead, right? And you probably know how the story ends. Yeah. So I find myself with like an hour. A couple of the leads that I thought were going to make today's list fell through. Somebody tanked the price, right? One price tanked, one went out of stock, right? So all of a sudden, what I thought I only needed 2 to 3, I now need 4 to 5 to complete the list. And I've already chewed up all that extra time and then some that I had lead. So that's Parkinson's right there. Like if I had just set some sort of artificial deadline, say, you know what, let me get this lead. Let me check all the old leads. Let me find what I need. Let me schedule the email in advance. What a concept. You know, let's try to get this done by 10:30 so it's out by noon. Then I would have that hour and a half, the 10:30 to 12 window to do all the other stuff. You know, I still could have gotten that done, and probably even more. So
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
All right, let's answer some questions and then get you guys out of here for the rest of your Sunday. Let me see here. All right, so Matthew, do you think with Walmart trying to make some noise, it'll ever cause Amazon to listen to us sellers more? Maybe, but I don't know when Amazon would actually have to feel some pain or have some sort of negative customer reaction. I don't know. So I've got a couple of things here. Number one, the Walmart marketplace is $10 billion right now. Now, are they going to be bigger this year? Yeah, they will be. Although they did just release. You talked about this. They don't expect as good of a 2025. So what does that marketplace grow? They've been used to 30% growth quarter over quarter. Does it go to 10? Does it go to 15? You know, we don't know. So let's just say they have 15% growth year over year. They're now from 10 billion to an 11.5 billion. Amazon's marketplace is somewhere near $448 billion a year. So got a long ways before they're eaten into that market share, especially in a market, e-commerce, that is growing. Now, the other thing is, in my opinion, Walmart has got a pretty big hurdle in their reputation. Yeah. You want cheap groceries? You want the cheap hangers? You want the cheap clothes? Like, Walmart's the place to go. Absolutely. Now, are we seeing more people who are making more than $100,000 a year shop there? Yes, absolutely. But do you want to go to walmart.com to buy a pair of Nike shoes? Nope, I don't. I know that I'm buying from potentially the same people. I know that Chris may be able to sell a pair of Nikes on Amazon and sell the same pair of Nikes on Walmart. Do I feel comfortable buying those Nikes from Walmart? I don't. That's where you buy Shaq shoes from. So you got a big delta there, in my opinion, that they've got to leap over. And like Luke says, Walmart is already pulling Amazon tricks, and it's not they don't have a choice. Like, they've got to protect themselves. They've got to protect their customers. You know, they've got to do what the law states. And so they're requiring things like CPC documentation, and they're going to brands are going to start going to them and saying, hey, you know, we really want you to gate these brands. You know, it's just the way it is in 2025, especially as brands become more mature and realize that, oh, hey, we can actually control our supply chain a little bit more by talking to these marketplaces.
Yep. And it's only going to get worse the bigger Walmart gets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you think about it, you know, like, think about the big beauty brands, right? We're losing all these beauty brands. You really think that L'Oreal headquarters, once they see a higher percentage of third-party sellers selling their beauty products on Walmart, that they aren't going to take the same steps to lock it down like they did with Amazon? You know, like this and that. And then Walmart's taking a loss on shipping. There's no way they can get, there's no way that's at cost,
when you're shipping,
right? So
when you're shipping in like a 40-pound box for $3.25,
Right.
I mean, anyone who thinks that Amazon is not, or Walmart's not paying for that, is out of their mind.
Right. And they're just doing it to get sellers to come in. That shipping is going away, especially, and they've already laid the groundwork by tempering expectations of shareholders for the coming year. Okay, so if they need to cut costs and they need to save some money to boost the bottom line, how fast do you think somebody's going to send a memo up the corporate ladder saying, think maybe we shouldn't subsidize third-party seller shipments anymore? That's an easy win from the corporate side of things, right?
Yep.
And not to mention, not enough people watched the episode with Paul Rafelson. There is politics, internal Walmart politics involved in this as well. He dropped I found it incredibly interesting nugget that there are different CEOs of different departments within Walmart. And basically the brick and mortar CEO is king of the hill right now because that's their best performing branch on the corporate tree. And brick and mortar doesn't like Walmart.com. And Walmart.com, even though it's growing, is basically the redheaded stepchild. And so think about all of the different Game of Thrones style, you know, betrayals and, you know, and obstacles that can be thrown by a CEO who is used to being the golden child, potentially seeing a threat coming up from a department that he doesn't view as long-term as legitimate as his own branch. So
I was thinking about this a little bit the other day when I was listening to an episode of My First Million. They had a guy on who built a toy brand from nothing to billions of dollars a year in sales. This guy and his brother lived in New Zealand, and at 18, they both moved to China to start their own factory. And so, you know, of course, the question was, why did you guys move to China? Is that because, you know, that's where you figured it would be best to have a factory and that would be the cheapest and stuff like that? And they're like, well, no, we just didn't know that there were factories in China that would do this for you. So we moved to China, and after we saw other factories, we started our own because we didn't realize that they would work with us. It was, they seem to do everything backwards, and yet they succeeded. But the moral of the story is they got their first contract with Walmart to sell some of their toys. And the way Walmart retail works is if your products don't sell, you're on the hook. So if Walmart buys 50,000 units from you and they don't sell and they've clearanced them down, this guy said they clearanced some of their toys down to like 50 cents a unit in store, and they were not selling. And so they boxed them up, shipped them back to them, and said, okay, give us our $1 million back because nothing sold. So how soon do the people over at brick and mortar say, man, you guys are losing money, like this is ridiculous, my stock value is going down because of you people. Here's how we do it over in the big leagues, you need to get on board. And so what I'm saying, like, Amazon was willing to be in the red for a decade. Is Walmart willing to do that to grow their marketplace? And I don't see how they are.
Not after how many years of profitability. I mean, maybe as a startup, there's no, Walmart can't craft themselves into the reputation of being an underdog. That ship's sailed. That window is long closed. So yeah, you think about like fulfillment. If there's some stuff and they have to coordinate brick and mortar, how willing. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of stuff, and you mentioned the CPC. Like, do you think Walmart's exempt from providing documents proving that toys are safe for children? No, like, you're gonna get those same requests. But yeah, that's an excellent point about Walmart. They have a cutthroat B2B relationships. There are stories of truckers missing what was already a slim deadline to deliver. Like, brick and mortar delivery drivers have to be there in very tight windows. They took some sort of Mussolini class on how to run their deliveries on the backside of the Walmart stores. But you hear horror stories of trucks just being turned around. It's inventory that they want. It's inventory that they forecasted for. But you missed your 10 or 15 minute window to have your truck backed up into the dock. So get out of here. We got somebody else that's taking this bay, So yeah, we're gonna remember how we thought of Walmart here pretty shortly.
I thought we'd get through 1 week without Corey talking some smack about Ohio State. That's all right, man. That's all right.
What he said, he's a single guy. What's he doing awake in the afternoon on a Sunday?
Right. Is Milwaukee gated? Not for me. Yeah, good for you, man. I was ungated, bought some inventory, and then the prep center said, "Hey, you're gated in this brand. Get it out of here." So fortunately, was able to sell through all of those on eBay and Walmart. That was was actually my first sale on Walmart. What sites give the most for selling back gift cards? That's a good question. I'm gonna guess GCX is probably going to be your best bet because they're the largest marketplace. So yeah, it looks like Chris is already looking it up here, but that's my guess. Hopefully I'm right.
All right. Now, obviously, none of this is vetted, Matthew. But so I've got something called KadePay, KadePay. That's considered, according to Perplexity, considered the best overall platform for instant gift card sales, offering secure transactions, fast payouts. They also have Card Cash. GCX is on the list. Gift Cash. Gift Cash, is that who I think it is, Chris? Gift Cash?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And then something called 1 Minute Pay. The number 1 Minute Pay. So there's your starting point, Matthew.
Sorry, I know that was a little cryptic, but we can't say anything else. Lonnie, on some listings with variations, the Keepa BSR graphs are identical, which is unlikely. However, RevSeller shows different 30, 90, and 180-day BSR drops for each variation. Is RevSeller counting drops or calculating from reviews? So it is possible that the Keepa drops are a little bit different, and I do see that sometimes the information is a little bit different. You know, the sales rank will be a little bit different. They should be the same across variations. But you have to remember that Keepa is looking at those not necessarily as one item or one listing. They're going to look at all of the variations separately. And what you're going to notice is, let's say that we go in and we look at a Nike Air Monarch size 11, and Keepa checks it, you know, at 11 or 4:13 in the afternoon. But at 5:13 in the afternoon, it skips the size 11 and Keepa checks the size 12. Well, the sales rank could be different. And so sometimes that'll mess things up. So we always remember Keepa is directionally correct. It's not always going to be correct at the micro level. It is correct at the macro level. Okay. Where is RevSeller counting drops from? RevSeller is grabbing those drops from the Keepa data. And then the reviews are under the RevSeller variation viewer. So there's nothing in variations, or the number of reviews would figure into drops inside of RevSeller. And remember, drops are indicative of sales, but they do not correlate to sales. Okay. So don't use that to say, oh, well, if there's 50 drops this month, there were 50 sales this month. No, there are 50 indicators that this sells, not necessarily that there were 50 sales. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We do need to come up with, I feel like there's a perfect analogy floating out there that we haven't come up with.
I know. I want, and I can't quite go with causation is not correlation. Like, that's not quite it. But I don't know. It seems like there's something in that realm that needs to be crafted.
Yeah.
Joe Mazan, love the Sunday show. Glad to hear it, man. Joe, I'm going to be quite honest. I don't know if you're still here or not, but I am really looking forward to having you on the podcast. I really, really want to talk about your retail store. So I think I've told you, Chris, Joe does wholesale and lost a couple of his brand direct accounts. And they said, hey, you don't have any retail locations. And he said, hold my beer. And opened up a retail location at a mall.
Nice.
Yeah. Christian, what is Perplexity and how does it differ from ChatGPT and DeepSeek? So I can't talk about DeepSeek other than the fact that I can run it inside of Perplexity. But Perplexity is more like a search engine that uses AI. So ChatGPT is sort of a generative LLM, whereas Perplexity is more of a, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to scour the internet for you. I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to give you all of the footnotes of where I got these answers from. And then I'm also going to give you some related topics or questions that you might be interested in because of what you just asked. Now, can it also do some generative work? Yeah, it can generate images for you. You can sort of have it help you code, although I would use Claude or Grok for that instead. But for me, it's been much more about a great search engine. and then I use ChatGPT for some of the generative things. Would you agree, or am I missing something there?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that Perplexity was the first one to actually give you the citations of where it got the information. I know ChatGPT does that now. So and to be honest, as far as I'm concerned, everything's kind of moving a little too fast for me to keep up. So Perplexity actually, at the time, it was far easier to use Perplexity because you could dig into it. Not only would they give you a list of 10 of the articles that it looked at to provide the answer to you, if you want to dig deeper, like Chris said, it gave you 5 follow-up questions that you were likely to ask, and every time at least 2 or 3 of them are excellent questions and a rabbit trail that I would happily fall down into. And then Perplexity also, they were the first ones with deep research, which it's probably an acquired taste. I think most people probably aren't looking for as much detail as I am, but the deep research is fantastic. And also I did see ChatGPT came out with I don't know, these numbers. I wish they would follow like movie sequels, just Rocky 1, Rocky 2, like Jaws, 4.50 mini something. That's actually ChatGPT just rolled out to the pro users. It's a coding model.
Yeah.
One of the 4.5 something.
Yeah. One of the other things that I like about Perplexity is you can also choose which AI model you want to use. So it is built more for research. Like it's a Google replacer. Okay. But if you want to use Grok, or you want to use Sonar, which is their own model, or you want to use GPT 4.5 or whatever it is, you can do that all inside of Perplexity. So technically, you can use Perplexity for more generative things. I tend to just use ChatGPT for those more generative things.
Yeah. And we are just a day or two away from Perplexity announcing that they will be releasing their own web browser.
I saw that this morning. I have the wait list available to me.
Nice. Very excited about that. This is,
that should be interesting.
I'm not good with vision, but this is the death of Google. Like you can see it. You can see exactly how it happens.
I'm both excited for it and a little sad as well. Because honestly, I get traffic from Google. Like now, fortunately, that doesn't mean that YouTube is going anywhere. Like YouTube is still going to be a massive search engine because humans connect with humans. But I think for everyday searching, I think it's probably going to be a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And you've got enough authority to where they're going to look you up for probably a lot of the same organic questions that you would have popped up in a Google search. So
I hope so. SR, I'm struggling to keep up with one ASIN's sales. How much advanced inventory would you order on a single product? This is not a cop-out, but this is impossible to answer without more information. Have you been selling it for a month, a week, 6 months? If you've been selling it for, in my opinion, 90 days or more, and the price stays consistent, and you're having trouble keeping it in stock and you want to keep it in stock, you should not have any problem laying out for 45 days worth of inventory, as long as you're sure, like there is solid evidence that you're not going to lose money on it. But if you're like a week in and you're like, oh, I can't keep this thing in stock. Okay, let's keep testing that for another month. Maybe buy double the inventory you bought on the first round and make sure that everything goes just as smooth. And then maybe on the third round, maybe you buy, 2.5 times the inventory and keep stepping it up a little bit. So really depends.
Yeah. He just followed up, selling it for 2 months. The 422 here, I got it.
Only person on the listing, price is climbing. So I would go back and I'd look historically, like at what point do sellers start hopping on? So, because here's let's just say this is an item that was not in stock and you brought it back in stock and you brought it back in stock at a price that the market will bear. And so it's selling really well. Eventually, people are going to pick up on it. You're going to get it down to a 50,000 rank or whatever it is. And people are like, oh, this is under 50,000. Now I can sell it. Because that's the rule. You're going to end up having competition. I would go and I'd do a deep dive. Hey, how much competition should I expect? What is the price done when there was competition in the past? And if you're only 2 months in, maybe you should buy 2 to 3 weeks worth of inventory at a time rather than 45 days worth of inventory, just in case of some people hopping on and starting to erode the price a little bit. And then it also depends, like, how much, room do you have on it? If you're making like $30 a sale right now and you can kind of catch that falling knife down for a while, then I'd end up getting more comfortable. SR, could anyone offer suggestions for lowering our defect rate? One order caused our figures to exceed acceptable limits. I think you just have to sell more. Like, it should go away pretty quick if you're selling a good amount. Lounger, what do you think of Walmart versus Amazon marketplace ratio? If you factor in the ratio of less seller competition, does that trend? So is Walmart the better play because of less competition? I'm still at a no, because the volume is just insanely low. And the volume compared to the competition, they added 150,000 sellers last year, I think. I think that's the number. Let's see. Thousands. I think that's 10. No, maybe that's 10 billion. Anyway, I don't know what that number is per seller, but they're adding sellers pretty quickly. And also they are adding a lot of Chinese sellers. And listen, I'm all for I want competition. I'm all for that, but I don't think that there is a level playing field all the time. And it seems like that's where counterfeits come from largely. That's where, they're willing to do some more black hat things. And so it's not great.
Yeah. And I actually saw, have you seen the ads Walmart's putting out trying to lure sellers onto the platform?
I don't know that I've come across one yet.
Yeah, just in the last couple of days, I noticed on Facebook I'm getting targeted ads, and they offer, I forget what the offer is. I'll pay more attention to it moving forward, but it's like 75% off fulfillment fees for a period of time. It's some incentive laden offer to start selling on the marketplace that I'm starting to get.
That's crazy. But
I saw an interesting quote that kind of applies here. And I want to say it was from Naval. He said, if you want to make money, you have to be right quickly. If you're right, there can't be you can't make money and be right with a consensus is essentially what he
Mhm.
said. So the fact that everyone's talking about Walmart's running ads, we have data on how many Chinese sellers are coming onto the Walmart marketplace. I think the time to move over there to maximize the money is probably gone. You know,
Mhm.
it's kind of like a boomer like me with by the time I think something looks good fashion wise, it's time to move in the opposite direction, definitely,
Right.
and has been for quite some time.
And
I think it's that kind of thing.
eh, yeah, I don't want anyone to mistake this Walmart hate for us thinking that you shouldn't sell on Walmart either. Like
Hmm.
if if there is a marketplace that you can leverage, great, do it. Like you should have an eBay account, you should have a Walmart account, you should have an Amazon account, and there are going to be opportunities. Like there are some things that actually will sell better on eBay than they will on Amazon. That's okay, and
Yep.
you're going to be able to find things that sell on Walmart better than Amazon. Like our job as arbitrage sellers and as retailers is to use the distribution channel that is best for us at the time.
Yeah, it's like I mean, the one thing that we will always call out is making a move, making a significant change as a solution that you simply don't want to take the time to solve yourself.
Mhm.
It's the same. It's with Walmart. If you're just frustrated with how Amazon's going. Like we've talked about perspective, a lot when we were talking about what was going on. But if you're just kind of taking your ball and going home, or shiny object syndrome, or grass is green, or whatever cliche you wanna pick, if that's why you are tempted to move to Walmart, we're gonna call you out on that. Same thing as if you're getting frustrated with sourcing. You can't find enough products, or and you say, well, maybe I'll hire a VA. But you're only doing that because you think it's going to be a solution to a weakness in your own business, and that is the absolute wrong reason to hire a VA, because you are the trainer. You need to be
Mhm.
proficient in something in order to be able to teach it and teach it properly, right? And
Mhm.
these are people with families and whatnot. So just kind of picking up and tossing away VAs is it's unfair. It's immoral.
Yep. Absolutely. Armon, Chris, which software do you recommend for multi-channel fulfillment? Amazon FBA to Walmart orders. I don't know. I haven't really tested any, but the two that come to mind off the top of my head are Listing Mirror and Export Your Store. I would test those out. I'm sure they've both got to have free trials. It's something that's on the very long to-do list. Very super cool guy. If the price is tanking, but I'm still really profitable, should I still buy? I am not against someone buying a product where the price is eroding. I like to call it catching the falling knife. Like it is possible, and it can be done. It can be a little bit dangerous. So I would see how profitable am I right now? Historically, where is the bottom? Okay. And if the price hits the bottom, am I still profitable? Am I break even? Am I going to lose 5%, 10% historically? And if you can say, oh, you know what? Well, worst case scenario over the past year or over the past 2 years, worst case price I've ever seen here is I break even, then I'd be okay with it. It's not a bad thing. And I'd also be okay with making less on each sale. So like you got to realize, and I think one of the things that people have a hard time understanding is when they source something, they're like, okay, when I sourced this, it was $7 in profit per unit. I expect to buy 3 units and make $21. Okay. That's logical. But in reality, you're going to make $6.50 on unit number one, and there's going to be competition. and you're going to make $6.25 on unit number 2, and on unit number 3 you're going to make $5.22. That is more realistic, and that's okay. Like, profit is still there. It's just not the $21 you were expecting, and that's not a failure. So I see a lot of people say, "Oh, well, I made less than what I sourced it." That's okay. You made money. Now go do it again. That's all this game is about.
Yeah. If you see the trends, if you see the pinch, emerging, where the seller count's increasing and selling prices decreasing, there is still a lot of times there's plenty of time to jump in and out profitably. But the one thing, if you do it and you know what the trend, what might happen, you're not allowed to complain about it. Mm-hmm. If somebody just way undercuts everything and the whole bottom falls out, that's the one rule. You can't whine about it on social media because you knew it was coming.
Zaid, what are screen setups for productivity and efficiency when sourcing, assuming you've got at least 2 monitors? I've got a 32-inch widescreen, ultra high def 4K monitor in front of me for screen recording and sourcing, and I've got a 16-inch MacBook monitor over here to the right. And of course, I use split screen quite frequently on the 32-inch. I'm thinking about adding a third monitor, a vertical monitor, but I haven't decided yet. Chris, what do you use?
Yeah, I've got 2. I don't have the specs. Like I don't. This thing's. I don't know. there's one. It's curved, right? It's one of those Samsung curved thingies, right? Which I'm not sure what I've ever gotten out of it being curved, but so what I do is I'm right-handed, so most of my stuff is here. I can split into 2 windows and still be fairly comfortable. So I've got sourcing. Usually I'll have Amazon product page, sourcing, the site page here. And then I'll have my sourcing spreadsheet. Any, the spreadsheets that I'm going to use to log my activity are going to be over on my other screen, my left screen, and my coupon codes, because some of them depend. I try to limit the hijacking of my cashback affiliate cookie as much as possible. So some of the sites I will go over here in, whether it be like incognito mode or whatever, but I will copy and paste and just kind of boom, 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 check the codes, as opposed to like activating the Chrome extension and letting them run through their own codes. I don't like doing that. I'd rather do it manually, even if it slows me down a little bit. So basically the sourcing stuff's here, data and discounts over here. Mm-hmm. But that said, you don't ask me for efficiency. You've assumed that we have some insight and we're somewhat good at it, which may be a leap too far.
Joe, great, Joe. I'll be reaching out so we can get something on the calendar, man. We've had some great guests over the past couple of weeks. Heck, maybe over the past month. We've got a great guest coming on tomorrow. I'm excited about Joe. We're really cooking with the podcast, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good run.
Matthew. I know some people have opened up stores. Smitty. Do you think using Inventory Lab and a Google Sheet for tracking purchases is redundant, or do you do all that too? No, not redundant. Do both. Absolutely. If you include the prep center, purchases actually get recorded in triplicate. When did you guys start paying yourselves from your Amazon business? Are you guys paying yourselves on a weekly basis? I don't know whoever told you that you actually make money at this business. They sold you a bill of goods. No, I when I first started the business, I had a 6-month runway. And so this is why I don't know if it's like great advice for everybody, because if you could go for 2 or 3 years without paying yourself, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely do that. For me, I had a 6-month runway due to my commissions being paid out. And then I had to start taking money out of the business to pay for, you know, groceries. Had no choice. So it was about 6 months in. Was it on a weekly basis? Not usually. It was usually like every 2 weeks or once a month.
Yeah, I started doing it part time. So I had my full time job in the beginning. That that covered my nut. So I was free to reinvest everything back into the business. So, but as far as like a pay schedule, I do it weekly. I just like Sunday nights at later on. I'm later tonight after we get off here, and in a couple hours, I'm gonna pay the VAs, do all that stuff, get payroll done, and then I'll trigger a payout. I do it every Sunday night, so that it's usually sitting there Tuesday morning for a bill paying session.
Nice. Lounger, won't Google just end up out competing or buying out anything that starts making them lose due to their ungodly amount of resources? Don't think they will be like Blockbuster. We never thought Blockbuster was going to be like Blockbuster, and Blockbuster turned down being able to buy Netflix for like $1 million.
Laughed him out of the room.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic story. If you haven't heard of it, go on YouTube and search for it. Really, really interesting. Um, so we say that and it sounds logical, but business is not always logical. Matter of fact, you should read the book Alchemy. Human psychology is not always logical, and humans run businesses. So, could it happen where they buy out some company? Yeah, absolutely. But why aren't they doing that right now? You know, I don't care whether you love them or hate them, but Elon started Grok or XAI way, way late, like within the past year, and
Mhm.
they're beating Google already. Why hasn't Google bought their tech?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. It has to do with with development. And we talk about Blockbuster, and that's such a good story because it's the way it's presented. But the problem is it's in hindsight, right? It's a great story now, right? So when it was going on, it wasn't quite as obvious, So it has to do with the development and the vision. And let's be honest, the people most of the time, and maybe I just watch too many movies, but most of the time, the people, the smartest people, the most creative people, the people with the best vision, want to work on for and with up and coming companies, right?
hmm
And by this time, Google is the old man on the block, right?
hmm
And they've got antitrust questions and issues, and they have for the first time in a very, very long time lost market share in search, in internet search, which it wasn't that long ago that I could not envision a scenario where anything that I knew about could take a cut of Google's market share. But here we are. So, and it's, we're going to see it here. If you want a bold prediction, it's going to happen with Apple
hmm
because there is no innovation. Take a look at a snapshot of Steve Jobs when he was running the show before he thought fruit juice could stop cancer. He went through a series of iPod, iPad, boom, but right, just these groundbreaking innovations. And then look at similar chunks with Tim Cook, and
It's
there's
not a good.
nothing new. It's just a yeah, there's no innovation. It's just the new version of something that's been around.
You can take my Apple product for my cold dead hands. Tell you that much.
They'll be incompatible with the superior tech eventually.
What's a good duration between product ordered to listed on FBA? I mean, a good duration is 2 weeks, if you're lucky. But more realistic, I think you should figure that it's on average probably going to take somewhere between 21 and 30 days to, actually order the product, get it, have it prepped, shipped, and received and transferred to its final resting location before it sells.
Yeah. And, pay attention to the parts of that duration that you can control. There may be some fine tuning. Like I brought a new prep center into the mix, and I'm not thrilled with the pricing of the turnaround times that I'm used to. I was used to, I don't know, I think it was 3 to 6 business days. That window was $1.50 a unit. So this new prep center has basically that same duration, the 3 to 6 business days, roughly. I'm not sure if it's exact, but it's $1.70 per unit. So now, and then considering inventory placement and, the added shipping costs and whatnot, and I've already added money to the cost side when I source, so it makes me uncomfortable to want to go more. So basically I have to determine whether it's worth it to take the 6 to 10 business days for $1.40 versus biting the bullet and adding yet another 20 cents per unit to ancillary costs.
SR, really appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Lounger, about the upcoming policy change on lost Amazon shipments and products to sellers' source cost. What happens if our documented cost is much higher than the current buy box or whatever pricing info they use? Well, you are able to show Amazon what your sourcing cost was. You cannot include any inbound shipping or Amazon fees or anything like that, but you can say, hey, Amazon, I know that your price on this is, say, $12. My actual cost to source this was $25. Here's evidence of that. Now, they can deny that or they can accept it. That's kind of the thing. I don't know if it's going to be worth uploading all the documents. And I'm not 100% sure if there is a process to do it after they reimburse or if that's like the final decision. Because I know Amazon seems to be doing this for a couple of reasons. Number one, is this a fee increase? Yeah, it's a way for Amazon to save some money. And if Amazon goes, oh, well, there's no way to, after we pay you, there's no way for you to come back and say, oh, but here was my sourcing cost. Then that also helps Amazon and reduces their cost, both in labor for people looking at those kind of things and in saving money on not giving people more money. But I don't know. And I don't know if on the front end, like, is it going to be worth the time to put in all of your receipts? How many of them are they going to accept? Some of the numbers on mine are ridiculous. Something I sourced for $12 that Amazon says they could produce for $3. Well, sure you could, but your numbers are wrong because it's based on your private label, not based on the reality of reselling. Now, the other thing is Amazon plans on updating those numbers every quarter. Do those get updated because Amazon now has more data? and they update them to be something more realistic, maybe, but that's also me trying to find a silver lining. Sorry, guys. Just I don't like Google's search AI either. It is not good at all. It does hallucinate. It does gaslight. It does lie. It is not. They have not done AI well.
There is an extension out there that will hide all of Google's AI enhancements.
Yeah,
I'll have to.
Adam, I think Elon's a little crazy having 14 kids. I would agree there. But you got to give him some credit that he does live his beliefs. He thinks that people need to have more kids, and he says, "Watch what I can do." I was actually
that is an underrated part of his crazy.
Yes, it is. I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was wondering, because a lot of these kids are actually not they're not conceived in the old-fashioned way. Okay. And so I was wondering, is this a rich man who is like, well, I can afford to take care of all these kids and take care of their moms? Is this his way to be like, well, one of these kids is likely to be as smart as me, to have the abilities that I have and want to follow in my footsteps. So I just got to have a lot of shots on goal, and then one of them should turn out, the way I'm hoping, and obviously, I'm not going to say that he prefers one kid over another, but there is only one kid who seems to be with him, in public and stuff like that. So I don't know. And then there's something else to be said about, is he reads a lot of biographies. So is him having all these kids and then it seemingly not being present in some of their lives, is that kind of his way of trying to make them great? Because, well, if you read a lot of biographies, you'll notice, the story of the son is in the father, and a lot of dads were either hard on their kids or not present. They had very loving mothers, and they grew up to be the Andrew Carnegies, the Mellons, the Henry Fords of the world. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just throwing out thoughts that I had, on my hot girl walk.
Well, I have a 6-year-old daughter that at 7:30 in the morning held up a hand and said, "Don't even bother wasting your time talking to me." So I don't understand why anyone has kids at the moment.
Oh, that is so funny. I'm funny because it didn't happen to me.
Right.
Now, one last thing I want to say is, I get some flack every now and again about the people who I might talk about or people who I may look up to, but we got to remember that we can just pick the pieces from people who have done great things. You don't have to be like, I really Napoleon, he's got some features that are useful. You don't have to take the somewhat psychotic features that he had and look up to those. You could just take some of his features of leadership that are useful, and you can leave the rest behind. You can do that with just about everybody. Now, I'm not saying, I need to go look for the good in some serial killer, but everyone else who's done some really amazing things, you can pick a couple of things that they've done well and try to assimilate those into your life.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How far to go back in Keepa history? If OA is focused on quick flips, why go back more than a year? A year is, in my opinion, usually good enough. But sometimes I want to see a little bit more. Because I just want to see what like, what does it average out to? You know, and I'm not doing any math or anything like that. I just want to see, is there any seasonality to it that I can see over and over and over again? You're gonna, if you go back and look at some Ticonderoga #2 pencils and look out over the past 5 years, you're gonna notice some serious peaks and valleys because it's got some very obvious seasonality to it. But if you do that over products that don't seem to have seasonality, you're going to actually notice the same thing on a long enough period of time. And it might give you a little bit of insight into, oh, when does this kind of thing actually go on sale where arbitrage sellers are buying it? So, if you see every year that the number of sellers spikes in, let's say, April, oh, maybe this goes on like super sale for spring. It's a spring blowout. Well, could I then buy it in spring and maybe hold it until, all those arbitrage sellers are sold out? If I can afford that, like, you'll learn a lot going back a little bit further.
Yeah, I find that anytime I'm looking back further than a year, I usually have a specific question in mind. Most of the time when I find myself clicking all, or whatever the last choice on Keepa is, I'm usually looking to see if Amazon's ever been on it. Because at least in my head, that adds some legitimacy to if I'm questioning whether it's the real brand, I can't find an answer, or trying to forecast potential IP risk, or whatever it may be. But there's different reasons that I'm looking to see if Amazon's ever been on it. And then not only seasonality, but it's kind of easy to forget occurrences, and we may not associate something that if you look at it on a wider angle is obvious. And what I'm thinking is, think about how many charts that you had to go back longer than a year around 2021, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because lockdowns did some weird things to the Keepa graph, right? So, you kind of had to go back, you wanted to look further than a year because you wanted to see what the old trends were, because the past 1 year, it's not real reliable. There was something unique to that past year. And that's the obvious example, but you may need to look back further than a year because you don't realize that an influencer on TikTok was pushing it really hard, and like 13 months ago. So you're seeing a tail end of, an abnormality of popularity. So if you go back further, you may see that no, long term, it really doesn't sell that well, or there may be some insights unlocked.
Yep.
But it's usually specific.
Luke, is Amazon going to overwrite our already approved costs invoice? That's a good question. I don't know. Now, if Amazon updates those prices quarterly, do you have to show your invoices quarterly? Great question. Heather, Elon's crazy. What about the women that are having all those kids with? Yeah, one of them has 4 with him. There is something to be said there as well. Like, it's the line between genius and crazy seems to be very thin, if maybe even non-existent. I think about Elon. I think about Nikola Tesla. I think about who's the guy who electrocuted elephants? Thomas Edison.
Did he? That's not very nice.
Yeah. When Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison were kind of going back and forth about AC and DC current, Thomas Edison actually took an elephant to a public square and electrocuted it to death. So this whole he's absolutely crazy. Yeah, absolutely. But sometimes genius and crazy are real cozy.
I always think it's a fun thought experiment to try to picture some of these people trying to court a woman. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like can you picture Elon?
Oh,
You know, or like
no.
just certain people that you just like Warren Buffett. You know, like how do you
And
know
Warren
like
Buffett's got
whoa.
2 wives, or had,
Right,
essentially.
right. Like,
Like, how did he
what's his
do that?
pickup line? You know, like, did you see
Right?
the EPS on Coca-Cola the other day? Ooh, like, I don't, like, what does Elon do? You know, like, I've seen him talk. I've seen him, unfortunately, shirtless. You know, like, what is his pickup line? You know, like, you want to bump a ketamine, or I mean, what does he have to offer females?
Good
I don't know.
question. Very super cool guy. Why do OA YouTubers mostly focus on profit dollar amount and ROI and not profit margin? I think it's because profit dollar amount, of course, is very easy to understand. ROI also is easier to calculate on the fly in your head than profit margin is. Like I do not have the calculation, and if JR is anywhere nearby, he's going to yell at me. But I cannot calculate profit margin in my head, but I can very easily say, oh, I'm going to buy this for 10. And when I sell it, I'm going to get $15. Oh, that's a 50% ROI. Quick and easy, just like that. And so it's nice and simple. And I think it's something that we just understand easier as humans, because when I say I'm going to get a 50% ROI, that is not a 50% profit margin, even though I bought it for 10 and I'm making $5 on it. It's not how that works. So,
Right.
All right, guys. So this inaugural show, almost 2 hours long. I think we're going to need to wrap it up there. I'm sure that our families would like us to come out of our holes and see their faces for a little while. But we are going to start doing this every single Sunday. We're going to do Sundays at 3. We're going to do Wednesdays at 5:30, and just do these live shows twice a week. They probably won't be 2 hours long, but I would imagine that they will often be an hour to 90 minutes. Try to answer your guys' questions, talk news, and help any way we can. So thanks for hanging out with us on a Sunday. I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday for another round of news and Q&A.